Welcome to the Love the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is a Super Bowl winner. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, right above me, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. He's also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network, where, it has been over a month now, Brian, since you've been able to do a post-game show in celebration of a Cowboys win after another brutal game, losing this one to the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, 34-6. And It's gotten to a point where I don't know how to summarize the Cowboys at all, other than to just say, look, we can come up with all the different adjectives we want. It is a simple 3-letter explanation for all of it. Bad. They're bad. They're bad at preparing. They're bad at scheme. They're bad at execution. Their players are played bad. Like, everything about it is just, it's bad. Their injury situation, bad. This is as bad as it could possibly be for the Cowboys right now. A team that, I think, given their current injury situation, Brian, and the way they've played overall, this might be, at this moment, one of the 5 worst teams in the NFL.
It hasn't been good. I didn't feel like, and I don't think you did either, felt like that they were going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles.
Nope.
Didn't. It would have been even a tough game with Dak Prescott playing quarterback. But what I would believe is that Dak would not have gone 3 and out as many times as they did on offense.
Mm-hmm.
Can't believe that. Defense played, I think, the best that they could play since the Pittsburgh game. I feel like that Mike Zimmer, and I'm not saying this because Mike Zimmer and I are friends. I have a lot of respect for Mike. I do feel like that Mike is trying to do things scheme-wise to give his defense a chance.
That looks different out of the bye week. The defense, to me, does look different schematically. He has tried to play stack box. He's tried to play 3-down linemen. He's tried to play double A gap, walk linebackers up into that area. He's brought blitzes. He's doing everything he can. He can't hide the fact that he's struggling at left corner. And we'll see. We'll see what happens this week with you never know with the situation with Bland. You don't know. They do have the extra day because of the Monday night game. But you don't know. My gut feeling is that likely that maybe McQuamu would start at left corner. He was better than Carson late in that game.
Yeah, and Mike's trying to do the best he can with the players he has. Unfortunately, I can't always say the same for what's going on offense. And I mean this in no disrespect to Mike McCarthy. It's the second week in a row, and Bobby, you're an insider at that place. So you can tell me. I used to live there. I don't live there anymore. But
McCarthy doesn't either.
McCarthy might be terrified of what his offensive line is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's worried about it, so he's going to throw stick routes, hitch routes, slants. He's going to try and throw everything kind of underneath and get the ball out of his quarterback's hands before, maybe a Guyton breaks down. And by the way, admirable job, fine job by Awesome Richards.
Yeah.
Coming in and playing at a high level in a game where he had I saw one bad play, the sack he gave up. But other than that, the balance, the body control, the footwork, he more than held his own over there. So,
he was better than I feel like Guyton has been this year.
Yeah.
More technically sound.
So with all those things being said, they really – I was wrong about their tight end room. I think Ferguson's really struggling. I don't know if Ferguson's banged up and hurt. I don't think he's playing like, they haven't got him going like I thought they were going to get him going. But behind him, they haven't had anything. They have not had anything at tight end. And so now you're kind of, maybe your line's struggling, your tight end room ain't helping you. You you've got one receiver, maybe 1.5 receiver right now.
Yeah.
And I'll ask you this question, Bobby. Do you think you're honestly going to get a good evaluation of Mingo with this quarterback situation the way it is?
No, but also I think that they view Mingo as more than just this year. I think they view Mingo as he's a part of the plan into the future, and so that's more about what you got next year. But I still don't think it was wise to sacrifice the pick that you did.
Okay, we went through all that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so. It's been a struggle at wide receiver, and I think a lot of it has to do with, they had some routes the other day in that game that Cooper Rush missed, and there were a couple of routes that they threw in that Atlanta game that it looked like they ran in the Philadelphia game. The pass that he overshot Tolbert on an in cut that went too high that almost got intercepted. It went over the safety on the back end. I think it was Gardner Johnson almost intercepted it. It's the same pass play. I believe they ran on 4th down. They threw it and they ran the double in with Tolbert and then Turpin behind it. And it was the pass he threw to Turpin that got a first down. He had a couple options there to throw the ball, do the same thing he did in Atlanta, and he missed the play. Threw 2 deep balls, missed on both of those. Cooper Rush looked like he had never played an NFL game the way he quarterbacked that one. The fumbled snaps, the pocket awareness, the lack of. Was Kellen Moore the guy? Was the guy that can help him navigate a game and win games? Was Kellen Moore that guy for him? Maybe so, because Mike McCarthy wasn't. Mike says he's got to get Cooper in rhythm, but you can't. How do you get a quarterback in rhythm throwing the ball on a swing route 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage and then have a wide receiver out there blocking that doesn't block very well? That to me that's not getting anybody in rhythm, right?
It was the lowest air yards per completion of any quarterback in the NFL this season in that game the other day. And
we've seen some Zach Wilson games with the Jets and people like that.
This is bad.
Not this year, but
Sure, but just in general. I mean, this is bad though. And look, I think we talked about this on 105 Through the Fan on Sean and RJ on Tuesday morning, where I was a little fed up, where we started talking about things, and Sean was saying, I feel a little bad for Mike in the wake of the Micah comments and some of that stuff, and to me, it's like, no, we're 4.5 years into this, and this offense is it's awful, and schematically, it's awful. And I'm sorry, you went into the barn with PFF and you talked about all these things you learned. And then when it was there on the line for you, it's shown up to be more what you said in your first press conference, which is, I said I watched every game. Yeah, it looks like you said a lot of things. Because what I see here is I see an old, unimaginative, lazily designed offense. It looks really bad. And it's the kind of thing that makes me say, you're not getting another job after this. I think teams around the league will look at what you did over the last year and a half, and they'll say, nope, not for us. This is it. And we'll wait out the clock. You're not getting an extension here. I think you're a bad football coach, and I think that you've overseen a bad culture. And so to me, you're just suffering through a final 8 games here before you can finally say, all right, what's the next fix? Is it Vrabel? Is it Belichick? Is it whoever, whatever else? I don't know what it is, but there's got to be some bigger fix to the culture and some of the offensive scheme stuff. And what really is difficult for them right now is, A, they don't have a Kellen Moore like you talked about to oversee this sort of thing. And Dak being out, having the surgery, as Jerry announced on Tuesday morning, he's going to have the surgery. That shuts.
That was a good question by you guys to get that out of him, by the way.
Oh, yeah, thank you. But as that was announced, it's like, okay, well, Dak took over a lot of the offense last year. It didn't look good because of Mike McCarthy. It looked good because Dak took control and players took a lot of control of what that offense was supposed to look like. And I think now what you see is, man, you take Dak out of that, you remove him from the equation, then what you're going to see is an unvarnished, unimaginative version of this offense, which is Mike McCarthy's offense to its core. And I don't feel bad about any of it. I don't feel sympathy or anything else. I feel like, no, it's time for you to answer for how bad this is. This is on you at this point. To me, Mike McCarthy is headline number one, your biggest problem with this football team right now.
Yeah, I've made a suggestion of Jerry Jones going in and asking, listen, Mike, do we want to think about maybe Brian Schottenheimer calling plays just to see if there was a little bit of a different rhythm, a little bit different talk, a little bit different understanding of what they want to get to. And I also made the mention and folks are like, well, damn, Brian, he's trying to save his job. I mean, probably going to want to go out on his own accord. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But the minute that Mike McCarthy
do you care what he wants?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying if you're Jerry,
the minute he pushes back, I would go, then you're fired. I'd say that you're fired. If you push back on me making suggestion to maybe try and change something with the offense, maybe give it a little bit different look, maybe a little bit different, cadence to it, or a little bit different, if you're not willing to try to do that, and it's hard to ask when a guy's trying to save his job. It is. Mm-hmm. It's hard to ask him to, hey, do you think that we need to do something different? And if like I said, if he pushes back from that, then I would say, Mike, you're fired. And I'm gonna name Bones Fossil the interim coach, and Brian's gonna call the the offense, and Mike Zimmer's gonna do the defense, and we'll figure everything out. But thank you very much for.
Let's talk about some of these ways maybe to fix the offense, because I think you and I have similar ideas on how you might be able to make this look
college offense. Trey Lance RPOs.
Let's talk about that here just a sec. First, let me remind you guys that you are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian. The idea of how to fix the offense. If you want to fix the offense, I mean, sure. Maybe. You're willing to say, if you're Jerry, let go and let God. Let the chips fall where they may. We're not going to tank, but you know what?
They don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to tank. They really don't have to tank.
But yeah, let's look at it and just say, you know what? I'm not willing to make a bunch of changes just to win 2 extra games and ultimately not make the playoffs. Let's just let it play out the way it is. Maybe that's their thought. But if you want to be more competitive, and if you want to win football games, if you want to be in a position to finish this season with a better shot at potentially contending for an outside wildcard spot or whatever it may be, the offense has to get better. Because I think the defense is actually showing some competitive toughness the last few weeks. They're trying. In some instances, Kalen Carson is not very good right now, and he completely lacks confidence. And
he's probably not. And he's probably not healthy, or he's healthy, but he doesn't have confidence in his shoulder after what he went through, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's going to cause some timidity in the way that you play, and that's tough. Look, it felt like Jalen Hurts. I was talking to John Machota in the press box when we were watching that, and when we were closing the half, Machota had mentioned it. He's like, man, it looks like Jalen Hurts is walking up to the line of scrimmage and then just saying, where's 21? All right, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that sucks when you get in that position, but, the Cowboys made an adjustment. We'll see how McQuam handles things. But I think defensively, you're trying to do some different things. You're having some success at times, but it's a lot to ask them to shoulder.
A damn guy who I know you and I have talked about this. I wanted to see Overshown Rush more. I was calling it a poor man's Micah Parsons is what I was talking about. Guy could have had 3 sacks in the first half.
He's going to be really good for them for a while. Yeah. And look, you got Parsons back. I thought Carlos Watkins played good football. I think Chauncey Golston's playing well. All right, so now I'm starting to see some semblance of a front four that I feel like I can trust. Watkins and Osa on the inside, Golston and Parsons on the outside. All right, if Kendricks can get a little more healthy, you've got Kendricks, Overshown. All right, now I'm starting to see a semblance of I can see a defense that can be competitive. How do I make the offense competitive? And Brian, I think you nailed it. Throwing the football, I'm probably trust Trey Lance even less than I trust Cooper Rush. I know Cooper Rush wasn't great, but overall, just what I've seen from the two of them, I probably trust Trey Lance less. What this team probably needs to be is, like you just said, Brian, college offense, RPO. Yeah. This needs to be a lot of read option and Trey Lance running the ball 10 to 15 times and Rico Dowdle running it 15 to 20 and Dalvin Cook or Hunter Lipke carrying the ball a couple other times, and then run some of this short passing game stuff or some max protect play action hits. Try to take advantage of it then. But right now, the offense that you're running, you need a schematic shakeup. If you're going to try and run this offense, they may not win another game with how bad this looks.
Yeah. designed runs. We saw Trey Lance on a designed run that ended up being an 11-yard run. Quarterback draw, snap, fake, run. You know, I mean, I know it's late in the game and all that, and the hay was already in the barn and all, but that's this team. It needs to do something different offensively to make defenses respect them.
Yep.
Dallas, they don't face any heavy box because nobody respects their running game. You know, teams are like, well, and then they try and take Lamb out of the game, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But they need to think about Trey Lance, Rico Dowdle, maybe even get Deuce Vaughn involved. This stuff like college type of an offense where the RPOs, you brought everything up. I think you're absolutely right by that. But running stick routes and hitches and outs and right before, 5 yards before the sticks, it's 3rd and 8, and you throw a 5-yard pass, and let's break a tackle. And I mean, hey, the only people that break tackles are against the Cowboys defense. They don't. By the way, Cowboys defense is tackled better. They have tackled better. Mm-hmm. They have tackled better, but there was a time where they really didn't. But the last 2 weeks, your offense has been everything short of the sticks. And maybe Mike McCarthy on his way out to the farmhouse in Wisconsin is going to tell us, he's going to say, I was terrified of this offensive line.
Which is the case, I think. I think so. I think he hates playing with 2 rookies.
I think
which maybe that gives them an opening to say, you know what, Awesome Richards needs to be the left tackle the rest of the way. Look again, if you're talking about wanting to win games now offensively, you may need to have the courage to say, Tyler Guyton, I'm sorry, you're going to need to take a step back and kind of look at some things a little differently because we got to run with Awesome Richards out here at left tackle for us. You're going to need to take a step back and look at, are you evaluating or are you using all your personnel right? I got to say, Brian, at this point for me, there's not an excuse left with the run game. To me, it's just negligence at this point.
Well,
they had success with Rico Dowdle early and they got away from that run game. I don't know why they gave up on those concepts as early as they did in a game that was not a blowout.
See, and McCarthy always is telling us it's about reps. You're the play caller, sir. You're the play caller.
Yeah.
You're the one that determines whether they run the ball or not. Your call, what you send in. That determines. Yeah, we just have not enough attempts. Yeah, your running back was averaging damn near 5 yards a carry.
And looks good doing it. He
looked great
good
doing it. Yeah, I mean Philadelphia. You popped a couple of teams had popped some draw runs on Philadelphia. You did the same thing. Get a 19-yard run. Because you're like, whoa, we evaluated, we saw it, and it worked. And then you just go away from it. And I don't know. I'm left. This is where I've become, Bobby. I mean, seriously, I'm starting to look at college tape. So I'm working on the draft already, which I've never done in my past.
You found me a running back?
7. Oh yeah, that kid. Yeah.
Genty good.
Yeah, he's
you like
really
him?
Good. He's really good. The thing that so what I'm trying to do is my expectations are very, very low for a win. And I'm trying to find players that are continually will play hard, and they will do what the coaches ask them to do. And there might be young players, and I'm evaluating young guys. I'm not expecting wins. I'm just not.
Can I give some praise really quickly, just really briefly to the idea? Because I know we both have talked about he's been disappointing this year. I want to give a lot of praise for just, if you want to talk about competitive toughness and effort, I think Jake Ferguson played hard through all 4 quarters of that game the other day, even in a blot. And even when he's playing poorly, that's a dude who is fighting and giving every ounce of effort. I think Jake Ferguson has shown a high football character the last few weeks. Yeah,
and Jake Ferguson, it hasn't been the all-pro that we thought Jake Ferguson could be when you start to talk about the top echelon wide receivers. Mm-hmm. And, he might be banged up and playing through some things. The quarterbacks, there's been some struggle there with that. But, behind him, it's not good enough. And when I go back and do the autopsy at the end of the year at 8 weeks, I'm going to go position by position. I'm going to try and remember what I said when you and I were in Oxnard, California, some 18 weeks ago, and to where this thing is now. Where did you feel like that they were going to make some gains, and where did you just flat miss the evaluation of where they were position-wise? That's the autopsy I'm going to do. But right now, not expecting them to win, looking at young players, seeing if young players are getting better. Maybe some guys. I'll ask you this question, Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's a shame that that Chauncey Golston's playing at a pretty high level right now, and you're probably going to lose him?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, he's just breaking out. He's finally become a little bit of that mini DeMarcus Lawrence you always wanted.
Because they finally played him at end. They finally just said, you know what, he has to play, and you know what, he's gotten better. He's not. I'm not saying he's, a world beater or all
but he's a good football player.
But he's been a good football player for
Yeah.
you, and for the last 3 years, you really didn't know that, and it I hope we're not in that mode now with the Cowboys where we're drafting and developing for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
We're draft and develop for somebody else.
Yeah, because you feel like you did that a little bit with Dorrance Armstrong and Tyler Biadasz.
Absolutely did. You absolutely did. You absolutely did. And Biadasz, I'm okay because I think BB, I'm okay with the Biadasz one, but
sure,
Armstrong,
but just in general,
guys like that,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like that here I spent, all this time, all this effort in working on Armstrong, and players are going to leave. I get it, but man, it's just I feel like finally Chauncey Golston's playing at a winning. Well, I shouldn't say winning because they're not winning, but if you look how he's playing at a winning level. He is playing.
He could be the way he's played. He can be a starting defensive end on a high caliber playoff team. Not necessarily the highest, but you would feel comfortable with him starting on a defense that is a playoff team with the level that he's playing at. He is somebody who gives you winning contributions, even if the team isn't winning. Do you think, before we get to our mailbag, quick question here. There was a little bit of this inside-outside flirting that they were doing with Neyland early. Do you think from Tyrone Crawford to Chauncey Golston, they might learn the cautionary tale and just say, you know what, we're going to stick at one position with Neyland. Let's not play with that.
If I was sitting in their pro personnel room, and the last time I did that was 2005, there's people that are listening right now that weren't even born then, I'm sure, that are enjoying this program, and thank you so much for doing that.
Shout out to you, kids.
Shout out to you, kids. But if I was sitting in that room, the one thing that I would say is let's not F him up like we did some of these others that have come through here. Remember Tyrone Crawford? Feel like he got F'd up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Inside,
he was the reverse. He felt like he should have been tackled the whole time.
Yeah. Well, but, there you go. Inside out. How many guys have they thought, well, he should be this?
Byron Jones.
Byron Jones.
Corner.
How about man? And I hope they're not going to mess up. I think that they're serious about playing Awesome Richards at tackle. I know Awesome Richards. I think you and I talked about this at camp at one time that he thought he would be a better guard. He wanted to play guard,
but he looked good at tackle. Yeah,
he looked good at tackle. But see, I just worry how many more guys are we going to see? And I kind of feel like that Neyland was on his way to being like he was going to be a really productive player for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Playing left end, playing right end. And unfortunately, though, his season was cut way short.
You're listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it's time for our Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag, where we turn things over to our dear sweet listeners for their thoughts, their comments, their questions. Before we get to theirs, I'm going to submit the first question in the Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag. Brian, you're 7 players deep in your draft process.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite player you've studied so far out of those 7?
I'll tell you what, it's so easy to love Travis Hunter from Colorado.
Which side would you play him?
I play him at wide receiver.
Ooh, I liked him at corner when I watched him, but
and you know what? That's okay.
He's really good either way.
You know what? I think he could help your team win more games playing at wide receiver. It's the explosiveness that he has. That you need that type of guy. Tet McMillan of
Tetairoa McMillan is really good.
Of Arizona, I think is a really, really good football player. I've looked at Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. And folks, please, when you look at Mason Graham and other Michigan players on defense, it's a different scheme. You'll see Mason Graham actually play upfield. You'll see him be disruptive. You'll see him not two gap. When I mean two gap, it's extend, look inside, look outside, and then get rid of the guy. We've seen Mozzie Smith, Chris Jenkins, those guys play that type of technique. Mason Graham plays up the field. He's disruptive. He'll swim guys. He's really super active. Grade the player, don't grade the helmet. This guy will probably be one of the top defensive tackles. When you start to talk about the one technique guys, this will be a guy that you'll really, really like. Will Johnson's a long corner from Michigan that I know Dane Brugler had him as his number 2 player in the top 50. I think that's a little rich for me, but if you like a really long corner, I think he plays a little bit better in some zone stuff. I need to see his man work become a little bit better there. So like that, I think he's a quality player, though. Abdul Carter, here's a edge rusher from Penn State. Mm-hmm. He wears number 11. He's like 6'3", 6'4". He's 259 pounds. He's long. He's rangy. He has start-stop quickness. He knows how to he puts blockers at a bad position. Watched him wear out USC. Watched him wear out Ohio State. This guy is hard on tackles. First step up the field, a lot of power, a lot of getting up there, a lot of dipping, a lot of getting to the quarterback, though. Really like Carter from Penn State. It's kind of a fun thing. He wears number 11. They kind of have a history with that linebacker edge player wearing number 11. Yeah. This kid's right in the mode of that. Starks, the safety from Georgia.
Malachi Starks, yeah.
Malachi Starks. He doesn't look like a traditional safety to me, guys. He's a smaller, kind of a compact, almost like a strong safety, but he runs really, really well. He tackles well enough. I've seen him kind of overshoot some plays with the Bulldogs. He gets in position and might overrun that a little bit, but they'll put him in the slot. They let him cover. Like I say, he tackles well enough. He doesn't look like your traditional safety. When you think a long, tall kind of guy, a little bit shorter guy, a little bit over 6 foot, but a stout guy when it comes to making a tackle.
I haven't watched Starks yet. Smaller or size comparison to Bullard, who was out of Georgia last year too.
Bullard
was a little smaller, wasn't he?
They're both. Yeah, like say it's 6 foot, 6'1".
Javon Bullard, I think, was like 5'10" and a half.
Yeah, Bullard was a smaller guy. And then Ashton Genty is the last guy I looked at it from. So this morning from
local kid
from Boise, Lone Star, right? Frisco Lone Star. Mm-hmm. Born in Jacksonville, Florida. This kid has a chance to be special. I do believe I loved Bijan Robinson coming out of the draft. I think this kid's a better player than Bijan Robinson.
Wow.
And I really, really like the way this kid could score from anywhere on the field. I think that when you start to talk about you could put him wide, he catches the ball down the field. He makes people miss. You can watch him against Oregon. You can watch him against Washington State. You can watch him against some other programs. And it's not just the Mountain West teams. I mean, he is wearing he wore Oregon out the way he was carrying the football. So, you'll see that him. I think he reminds me of Kenneth Walker from the Seattle Seahawks. That's the kind of the guy when I think about kind of a compact 5'9", 210, just running there. I mean, a lot of his yards are through the middle of the defense, and then he breaks tackles that people miss tackles. The one thing I'm learning right now, Bobby, is all these guys I really, really like, and I've done 7 of players. If Dallas is in the top 10, and there's going to be some other players that are probably going to elevate into that list or elevate into that group and be players 7, 8, or 9, I'm liking all these guys that I've seen so far. If Dallas is going to get a high pick, and I haven't seen like the offensive tackles, and I know people are talking about Will Campbell's and people like that. I just haven't got to them yet.
Quarterbacks too. Always got to ask about quarterbacks
too. Sorry, I'm dealing with a runny nose right now.
You're good.
But But I'm happy to be back watching players for the draft again. And but the list of guys I've seen so far, the Starks, the Johnsons, those secondary guys, maybe a little bit lower than what we've seen with the offensive skill guys, the wide receivers, and then that running back as well.
So if I tell you all of those guys you've watched so far happen to be there when the Cowboys pick, which one would you snatch up right now?
I'd probably take the wide receiver cornerback from Colorado, Travis Hunter.
There you go, Travis Hunter. All right, let's go to the questions from the listeners now. First question here from DJ Major. We saw him with a fumble recovery the other day. DJ Major wants to know, how has Marist Liufau been this season? We hear a lot about DeMarvion Overshown, but no one really mentions Liufau. I don't know about you, Free Brent. I feel like it's been a little hit or miss. There are flashes of things that you like, but still coming along. But someone who I think can settle into being a good player in the future. But about like you'd expect for a rookie linebacker, still kind of figuring things out.
Was a big part of that package that was getting blitz pressure the other day. Mm-hmm. It was a big part of they put those linebackers in the A gaps on the shoulders of the center, and they attack the middle of that defense. Liufau comes on a blitz one time, then Overshown comes the next two times. He's a guy that's been playing in the base packages and doing a pretty solid job. I don't think there's anything to say that's not positive about him. He's trying to get some work. They really, really liked him. When we talked to Mike Zimmer and others, when he got drafted, they absolutely loved him. The special team stuff has been okay for him, but he's going to get more work, especially if they continue to try and create more blitz packages, and especially using Overshown as a rusher. Then that means that Liufau is going to come on the field and play linebacker. So maybe, like I say, Overshown, poor man's Micah Parsons is a rusher. That means Liufau comes in and does a lot of the linebacker work, so you can use him in coverage. And it was nice to see him get on that turnover the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question here from Stone Dog 146, and it's creative. So I wanted to ask it here. He says, Dr. Strange taps you and Brian on the shoulders and says, I've seen every possible outcome for the season, and one of them leads the Cowboys to the playoffs. What would that have to look like in order for the boys not to be picking near, if not inside the top 10? I think we already laid out what it looks like on offense a little bit. Yeah. If you listen to the last segment, we talked about college offense, maybe lean on Trey Lance. And
so he's saying that they get in the playoffs somehow,
Yeah. And he says, you're told by somebody, hey, I've seen the future. There are all these different outcomes or all these different paths you can take. Only one gets you to the playoffs. We covered the offensive side. What would it have to look like on defense? For me, Brian, I would say I think they're moving towards some of those switches. Mukwamu probably playing over Carson for now.
They got to fix left corner.
You want to talk about a player who does play with confidence? Mukwamu plays with a lot of confidence.
He plays with a lot of swagger, and it's almost like he's scared. He's so scared he's confident. You know what I'm saying? You could tell he's kind of a nervous player, but I like the way the energy that he shows. They got to fix the left cornerback spot. They haven't really. They've been fortunate. Some teams attack the middle of the field. The safety play I don't think has been particularly great, but you're going to have to find a way to turn people over more. And to be honest with you, it might take being what Deron Bland was of scoring some too. Turnovers and score.
More that classic kind of Diggs interceptions.
That was a great play by that kid. They stretched you. They stretched you with the formation, and you're playing zone coverage. And Diggs, to his credit, was a ball player that time. Much like Brian Branch was a ball player when Dak threw that interception in Detroit. Very similar.
Next question here. We haven't taken one from Dean Julie in a while, so let's take one here from Dean. What is the best case scenario for the look of the offensive line in 2025? And how do they get offensive line Moses or running game Moses back? I don't. Think
running game Moses is Bill Callahan.
Yeah, and I don't think Bill Callahan's coming back here. I think Bill Callahan went ahead and said, "I'm going to C4 that bridge," and I'm good. Not walking.
There was a lot. Yeah, there was a lot of C4 under that bridge. Yeah.
Best case scenario is probably just BB a year later, Guyton more experience at his belt, and I think it's important to remind people Tyler Guyton was a defensive lineman when he got to TCU. Yeah. But there's still a lot here that the guy's coming into his physical gifts and things like that. Right. But I think, it looks like a TJ Bass or Awesome Richards stepping up and taking over the right guard spot when Zach Martin in all likelihood retires at the end of the season. If he doesn't retire, I think he's probably a cap casualty. I think they cut him. Yeah. And so I think you're looking for a new right guard next year either way. They feel like Bass plays better on the right side. So Bass kind of stepping into that role like you think. Steele hopefully recovered from that injury. If not, then maybe you say, hey, let's look at Guyton at the right side. Richards starting at left tackle for us. But I'd say Cooper Beebe just another year long, Guyton another year long, Bass stepping into a bigger role, and Tyler Smith just continuing his trajectory. That's probably your best shot on the offensive line next year.
I might consider double dipping on offensive linemen. I might draft a right tackle. I might draft, if I'm in that position, you mentioned it, I might take Guyton and put him at right tackle and then draft a left tackle and then maybe draft a guard if I had to. I might double dip at that position. I think I'm going to have to maybe, other than the left guard and the center, I think are solidified those spots. I think those are fine. People will maybe argue that moving Beebe to right guard and drafting another center might be an answer there.
I don't want to throw away that work he's put in at center. I like what I've seen.
I totally agree with you there. But I think I double dip maybe with the offensive line, tackle, guard, some kind of combination.
I think they're in line for 11 picks as it stands right now. So you're going to have plenty of capital. You could have 12, but you wanted to go get Jonathan Mingo. So It is what it is. All right, that does it for us here today on the Love the Star podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. A lot to talk about and look forward to with the Houston Texans coming to town. Still a tough road to hoe for the Cowboys. They've got the Texans this weekend. Then it's the Commanders the week after. You're coming from the East Coast, short rest, traveling back for the Giants. Then it's the Bengals who are starting to play better football, and the Panthers who all of a sudden have won back-to-back games. And this is still looking like it could be a tough path the rest of the way for the Cowboys. But we'll be there with you, and we'll start draft talk if we need to. We're going to have you covered either way. We're going to make sure that you're engaged now and you're engaged into the future. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We'll talk to you guys again later. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.